like if you're shredding all this stuff and you miss a note, who cares, right? But with this, if you're like, right? And there's a stadium and you're like, you know, like it's just the worst thing ever.
Scott and I are sitting here today with the legendary Jon Button, who plays bass in The Who. And today in this video, we are going to go through 5 tracks, classic Entwistle bass lines, and we are going to see how Jon Button approaches them. Jon, thank you so much for doing this. Are you ready to do this with us today?
I think so. Yeah, I'm ready. It's good to see you guys.
Pete's not playing guitar.
Oh, this is all bass, isn't it? That sound.
It's all bass. Just tambo.
I don't need to fight to prove I'm right.
The quality of this video is amazing as well.
So cool.
It was filmed last year.
And then finally we get guitar. Ah! All right.
This just makes me absolutely love Pete Townshend. Like,
it's so
he's
cool.
Amazing, is he?
We picked that one first, Jon, because I thought, like, you know, it's such a simple bass line, right? But it's all the bass carrying that tune. And is that the way you guys do it now as well, where it's just you and drums and tambo? No.
So the original, wah wah wah. The original, it's piano. So we have they didn't have a piano player. It was just the 4 of them, right? I mean, Pete played the piano on the original, I think.
Got it.
So we have piano and me going. I mean, the original is just piano, I think, no bass in the beginning. So yeah, it's me and piano.
Would you play like what you play on that tune and the sound that you use?
I do the spanky, whatever you call that thing, which is an interesting thing to me with this song because that intro, it's easy to miss the string with this technique.
Oh,
right?
with that technique.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
But so I'm always super conscious of like, if you're shredding all this stuff and you miss a note, who cares, right? But with this, if you're like, right? And there's a stadium and you're like, fuck. You know? Like, it's just the worst thing ever. So like, there's a lot of focus for me on just making sure I like nail every note, like right in time in the pocket. And like, cause that's one of the things to me with really simple stuff is it almost has to be way more perfect.
Absolutely.
Than when you're like, you know, like I say, when you're shredding a whole bunch of stuff, it's like, oh, I missed, you know, I missed a note. Oh, okay, you know, whatever. But just you gotta make that just, it's gotta ring and you know.
Jon, can you get into the technical? If somebody's watching this and they're listening to what you're doing, they're like, yeah, that's great, sounds great. Can you get into the technicalities of how you actually execute that with your picking hand?
It's basically like you're slapping, kind of, but you just do it. So instead of like a normal pluck where you kind of plucking through the string or whatever, kind of rolling past it, right? Yeah. I come up here where the frets are, and you just bash down almost, you know, it's similar to slapping. It's that same thing, kind of, but it's a different sound, right?
Got it.
Totally.
Is your finger going
it's
all
really
the way
neat.
through the string? Is it going all the way through the string? As you...
Yeah, but I'm really coming down at the fretboard and kind of coming past it. It's such a unique thing, and it took me a while to it's exhausting. Like doing that all night, it's like, whoa.
Oh, I bet.
You know.
You were saying earlier as well that Entwistle had his action really low, and when you play that, when you use that technique, you can clearly hear the strings slamming against the frets, just like when you would slap. So my assumption is, just like if you were playing slap bass on a bass with the strings that are too high, you're not going to get that classic slap sound. Same deal here, right? So do you need to have I know, like, I've played that bass. It hasn't got a crazy low action. It hasn't got a crazy high action. But I guess the reason why I'm stating it is that in case somebody's trying to get that sound and they're not quite getting it, it might be that the strings aren't hitting the actual frets at the end of the fretboard.
Correct. Yeah, you definitely have to smack the string down into there. And yeah, if your action is real high, it's not going to work. But mine, yeah, like you say, mine is not super low. It's I think I'm pretty medium, if not on the high side.
Like, did Entwistle play the majority of his lines with that technique, or was it something he just used on specific songs?
He did it a lot, but not all the time. And his right hand is like doing all kinds of, he did a little bit of thumb stuff. He played with a pick. All you people on the internet, he played with a pick. I get people just like, no, it's Fender fingers. You can't play with a pick. No, he played with a pick. Anyway.
There's a video of him playing My
bitter.
Generation with a pick.
Really?
Sure. I think he played the original with a pick. Yeah.
It sounds like it.
But yeah. Agreed. But yeah, so he did all kinds of different things. And I do as well. Like, I'm moving my right hand around. I play a lot just regular bass, and I'll even throw things in. And it's cool because with distortion on, right? You don't hear the distortion that much there. It really makes the distortion pop out, right?
Oh.
And you can really, adjust the sound with what you're doing with your right hand with that technique.
Yeah. You have such a lovely sound for that, man. It's so nice and such
that's
excellent
so kind
control.
Coming from you.
Oh, it's so true, man. Just the ability to control the gain, like the top end of the note, right? Versus pulling through the string back here versus smacking it and all that distortion pops out. It's just, God, it sounds great. You have freedom on that thing, man. I can just hear it.
And that's part of the thing with this bass kind of helps with that a little bit. When I play other basses, I can't get those dynamics and the same way. There's a lot I can do with my right hand with this bass and get a lot of different sounds.
So everybody's got to go run out and buy a 65p bass now.
Yeah.
Yes,
but you do so.
this one's a little. This one's a little bit special. I've played some other 65s. They were.
Got it.
One.
Yeah, that one.
I'm lucky. I'm super lucky that I found this, and it's like,
How do you get the gig with the Who? Is it I'm waiting for some cool gigs as well, but what was it like getting the call? How did that sort of pan out?
Well, so I had been playing with Roger Daltrey. He does a solo project that he tours with. I've been doing that for I think 8 years, and I auditioned. That was a super cattle call LA audition scene. So I auditioned a bunch, they auditioned a whole bunch of people. The guy they wanted wasn't available, so I was second place. And so luckily I got that. I did that for a long time. And we play a lot of Who stuff with Roger. Yeah. So I was sort of already a bit up to speed. So when Pino Palladino left the Who.
Who's that guy?
No big deal. Who?
He's he's pretty good.
I haven't heard.
You might have heard of him. He's done a couple of things. He's really up and coming. So then they thought of me. They were looking at some other people, I guess. And so I got a call from the manager who was the same manager for Roger as well. So he called me up and said, "Hey, Pino left. We're looking at a few different people. Would you be interested?"
What did you say to that?
Yeah, right? Yeah. Well, I'm like, yeah, of course. Well, yeah, right. Let me think about it. Yeah, so I'm like, of course. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to, see who else is around and blah, blah, blah. We'll call you back. I was like, okay. So then it's a week or 9 days. And I'm just going crazy, because your brain starts to move into the gig. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, that's going to be, no, wait, I don't have it. It might not happen. No, it's going to be, So then they called back and said, hey, we're doing a 2-week run in the UK. And we want you to come see how it goes. And so I did that. And partway through that, the crew was like, oh, the next thing is in South America. What gear are we shipping there? I'm like, nobody's told me if, and I'm like, hey, is this
have I got
out?
the gig?
Am I
Crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm still still doing it.
And how long have you been doing it, Jon?
Oh man, good question. I think I'm so bad with this kind of stuff. I think I started in 2017. So
Got it.
Yeah.
So good.
what is that?
6 years
6
now.
years.
Oh, man.
But one of the reasons that I think Pino left is that they took 2018 off just like there was nothing. Pete's like, I'm going to go in the studio and write. And so there's a lot of time of not doing it while
Sure.
you're doing it, if that makes any sense.
Right. And then there was this thing called COVID.
Oh man. Yeah. We had a lot of stuff booked in 2020. And we had a flight like the middle of March 2020. And then I just got an email. Don't get on the plane.
Wow.
You know, I mean,
Crazy. Well, I mean, Jon, we've talked before about how you've approached this gig. And there's so many questions. I mean, Entwistle is such a monster. He was such a beast of a player, interesting sound, interesting approach, and then all the different gear. He was like a huge gear guy, right? Yeah. And like, I feel like you could go at it a million different ways, but I would love to hear your thoughts of like, how did you step into these just ginormous rock shoes, and what did you choose to play and how to approach this crazy gig?
sure. So my sort of overarching kind of thought about it is to sort of do me to an extent and not try. I mean, Pete and Roger don't want me to try and be John Entwistle at all.
Got it.
But there's a part of me that wants to definitely like, I don't know if it's a tip of the hat, but like go towards that. Like there's, got to be some honoring of it. It sort of is part of the sound of the band, right? Is like an aggressive bass sound. And like, there's a certain, I mean, Pino went in with flats and, he's Pino, he made that work. But for me, it's like, it needs to be a little more biting and aggressive. But I mean, Jon was a very busy player and he made that work. I'm a very not busy player. Like my wheelhouse is just like meat and potatoes, whole notes. Like I'm a simple player. So I feel like I found some sort of middle ground in there where I'm sort of, honoring what Jon did and the music, but also kind of just doing to an extent what I do. So that's sort of my overarching principle.
Did you ever take into consideration like the fan expectations? Obviously, the Who, everybody, like John Entwistle, was there like this element of, oh shit, like there will be people looking at me as I go into that gig thinking, okay.
Oh,
like,
100%.
Yeah, like what?
But I try
is this guy going to be able to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I try to like not dwell on that stuff because that'll make you crazy, right? So I just have to sort of like trust in what I do and do me. But yeah, there's certainly a part of me that's like, there's all kinds of super fans that are just like, is he, and is he doing Jon Entwistle good enough? Is it?
Is it? Yeah. Is he
Right.
use
Yeah,
the exact
exactly.
same bass.
I mean, he's using a pick. That's blasphemy.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, and speaking of
Which we'll
bass
get
and
into that.
technique, what are you using for the gig?
This.
The 65.
So this is my 65 P bass. It's my desert island baby that I've used. I mean, it's a really good one. So I was fortunate that back in the 90s in LA, there were a whole bunch of like vintage music stores all around in the same area in Hollywood. And I just went and played a ton of P basses, like pre-CPS P basses. And I just loved this one. It just spoke to me.
Is that the one that you used with Sheryl Crow as well?
Correct.
Name dropping for
But-
you, John. You don't you worry.
Thank you.
I've got you.
Yeah, so it's funny because when I used this with Cheryl, I kept like super dead, crusty, old round wounds. Yeah, I loved doing that. And it's funny, I actually broke a string during one of the tours and was like, how am I gonna, because they had that,
Of course.
Oh, they had
like
the same-
played
what do
in.
you call that? Yeah, totally. And that was fun. Anyway, and then for the Who, I just used super bright, my lovely string company, Apex Strings, some real bright round wounds. And so, yeah, I used this bass the whole show, nothing else.
And have you always done that? Have you always done that? Like, ever since it was just like always the P bass, yeah?
Yeah. And then I've tried, I tried some other things. I tried other basses to try and see if, chasing different stuff. And I can just never get used to like some of these other basses. I was just like, it felt like you're talking and some other voice is coming out. You know what I mean? Like it just, I don't know. This is so me that I just stick with it and it works for me. And then amp wise, when I started with them, I used an SVT and a Suhr guitar amp, which is basically like a lower volume Marshall. It sounds like a Marshall just cranked up. And I'd use those both at just going full blast. But then more recently, we started doing a bunch of touring with full orchestra. So then I have 20 violins with condenser mics, each one with a condenser mic, like literally 2 feet from me.
Yeah.
So that was the end for that
of the
period
amps.
Yes.
Later on, Peg.
So, yeah, exactly. We'll put that in storage.
Right.
So then I started using modeling stuff. I started using the Line 6 Helix, which sounds amazing. And then more recently, I switched up to the Neural Quad Cortex, which they both sound great. There's some very subtle differences between them. But lately, I've been using the Quad Cortex.
Very cool.
With me today.
What are you using for the distortion sound? Just before we move on, is that the Quad Cortex that you mentioned?
Yes. So one of the reasons I switched to the Quad Cortex from the Line 6 Helix sounds amazing. The cool thing about the Quad Cortex is it will do captures, which means that you can capture the sound of any amp and like basically sample it. So my dear friend, Pete Thorne, amazing guitarist, YouTube celebrity, I went to his studio and he's got a vintage Marshall and we modeled his old like Plexi and put it in my Quad Cortex. So that's what I'm using. So I sort of tried to emulate what I was doing with amps with an SVT and a Marshall amp. Right?
Got it.
Yeah.
So I've got 2 outputs out of my Quad Cortex. One's an SVT that's kind of low-endy, like a little bit lacking high end. And then a Marshall that's just like, so that's where the distortion comes from. I'll crank it up a little bit more. And one of the cool things that I can do with the Quad Cortex and with the Helix, with just a modeling thing, along my bottom row of buttons, the 4 buttons go different amounts of gain on the guitar amp. So I can go from almost no grind, right?
Oh.
Right?
To the
So
biggest.
it's just the same amp
Yeah.
with different amounts of gain. So I can kind of tweak with that, through the set.
Oh, that's
And that's
cool.
super handy for me.
That leads us to the next tune, The Real Me. We've got Royal Albert Hall performance. He's on the buzzard bass, I think, on this one. But let's check it out. And I'd love to see like where you set your gain to approach this like just classic lead bass. I mean, he's really essentially playing lead bass in this, right?
100%. Mm-hmm.
So good. Oh, this is the buzzard bass, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh. All right.
I said, I'm crazy, Mom, help me. She said,
Oh, hang on. Is he slapping there?
Seemed
Yeah.
like there was a little bit of a slap hop situation right there.
Fully, yeah. That's what I was saying. He's like, his right hand is doing all kinds of magic.
He's moving all around, and I mean, it's so energetic and gainy too in that era. The buzzard bass era is like so gainy.
So
Yeah.
that's the bass that I play. That thing's crazy. It's heavy and just whoa. Anyway,
I'm sure. Well, I mean, so you take a tune like that, and do you feel like when you were learning that tune, because do you guys play that song live? Do you play Real
yeah,
Me?
that's
Yeah.
definitely in the set all the time. Yeah.
When you're approaching that, do you feel like you're playing a part, or are you playing your own thing? Are you playing what Entwistle just decided to play on the day that was recorded? How do you even go about that?
Well, this song is an interesting thing to discuss that, because I feel like this song, more than almost any other song, I'm playing pretty close to the part that he did and on the original recording, right?
Got
And
it.
he does as well live. He's pretty close to what
Right.
the original line is.
So this is like a through composed thing then.
Yeah, they're kind of parts,
Wow.
So I stick pretty close to that. One other interesting factor is that this is the only song that we lowered the key. They were playing it there in C, but we lowered it to A. So I have to adapt some of the lines, because he's doing a lot of, stuff where he's dropping to low E, and it's like now low E isn't the same
Of
thing when
course,
you're in
yeah.
A.
Right.
So I had to adjust a few things for that. But this is definitely, more than any other song, I think, I stick to pretty close to what he did on the original
That's
recording.
cool.
Yeah.
Could you
wanna
give us a
play
little?
us? Yeah, dude. Give us the
Oh, God.
unleash the
Give us
I will
shred.
try.
We need a little flavor of this. Yeah. Hey.
Right line.
Yeah.
What was that lower bit, John? Do you know that lower bit there you played? Yeah, that bit, yeah, like it walked up to the note, yeah. The reason why I asked is like, obviously you're playing all of Entwistle's lines. How do you think that he approached playing, around chords and like, obviously, I don't think he came from sort of like a school background or anything like that, but I think that
Actually,
oh, did he?
Actually, he did.
Oh, get into it. Yeah, tell us what the vibe is.
So he's a very good French horn and trumpet player. And him and Pete met. John was playing trumpet.
No way.
And yeah, so he reads music, and he did a lot of the arrangements, like in Quadrophenia, there's a whole bunch of horn arrangements, French horn and like, I don't know, some other brass instruments that John did the arrangements and played that stuff.
Shame on me.
Shame on you, Scott Divine.
Shame
Comments are going
on
to light
me.
you up, bro.
yeah. Oh,
So
that's
you can
super
hear
interesting.
it in some of his stuff, because he has a classical background, and some of the lines in the Who stuff, it's like, oh, he's thinking like a orchestrator or a, some kind of string line or something. Yeah. So he knew what he was doing.
That's so cool. I mean, and in that tune, are you kind of feeling like it's mostly pentatonic based? Is it mostly from that world, and maybe some chromatic blues style playing? Is that the vibe?
100% all of that. Yeah. A lot of his lines are pentatonic or arpeggios of the chords. And then, yeah, there's always the little flat five blues.
Oh, man.
Yep. A lot of his stuff.
Should we jump into the next one?
Yeah, we've got the next one up. We've got Won't Get Fooled Again. That same Shepherd and Studios. I will say the thing on this is that incredible, like melodic, I guess maybe the pre-chorus, that incredible melodic line. I would love to hear you check that out, but let's hear the Ox do it first and check out this performance.
And please just also look out to Keith here, Keith Moon playing drums here, and please notice that he's taped his headphones to his head with
Yes, he
gaffer tape.
has.
I was watching this the other day. The two things that really jumped out to me is like Pete Townshend just rocking it.
Oh, yeah.
And then the tape around Keith's head, holding his headphones on.
It's interesting because people often, ask me, oh, hey, do you guys use tracks? And I'm like, they were the first band to use tracks.
Way.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
I think.
For sure.
I mean, they're using tracks on this. Like that's why his headphones are taped to his head. 'Cause he's listening to
And
the
what was on the tracks? The
arpeggio
keys?
everything.
Was it keys?
Yeah, just the keys. I think he's just listening to that.
But the world looks just the same, and history ain't changed. 'Cause the banners they all thrown in the last war. I tip my hat to you, Constitution. Take a Bible, new revolution. Starting green, change all around. Pick up my guitar and play. Just like
The water bottles as well.
and I'll get on my knees and pray.
Jeez.
We don't get fooled again.
What the hell? Jesus Christ! What happened?
Oh, I mean, you know, that bass line is one of my personal faves of Entwistle's. That boo-doo-doo-doo. I would just
Right?
love to. Yeah, it's so cool. How do you approach that thing?
So it's interesting to talk about this song because the verses, I take a lot of liberty, and Pete and Zach Starkey, the drummer, it's like a moving target in a great way. Like they never play it the same way twice.
Got it.
Often Pete'll like leave out one and do a huge hit on two, and Zach and I are kind of like trying to see if we can catch it with him every night. It's like, he's gonna do it now. I bet he's gonna, and if we all
cool.
get it together, like at the same time, it's a really cool moment. It's funny. So I'm over on stage right, and I'm looking, and I'm kind of in the back of the stage. So I'm looking through the drums at Pete, and I'm just looking at both of them, Zach and Pete, the whole, like on this, especially on this song, I'm just like laser focused on the two of them and listening to what they're doing. And we're all sort of interacting on that verse. And then when that pre-chorus comes, I play it exactly, I play that always that part. And then the rest of the song is just like a free-for-all. And, I mean, Zach and I'll just drop out for a bit or whatever.
Oh, cool. Would you just break that down even just a little slower and just show us that?
So it's it's doing like a thing from the 6.
Yes.
What a great part, right?
So good.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Hey.
Right? It's I mean, playing that in a giant venue is just like, oh my God.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh, that's a great part, man. So yeah, that's one that you play straight up, just like the original.
That part, but then
Yeah.
the verses is like, go nuts and
Yeah,
go
right.
really anywhere.
Almost a bit of improv, right? Like you're watching both
Very
those
much.
guys, right? And you're responding. It's like rock and roll improv. How cool.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah, it's really fun.
Also, just want to call out as well that when you were playing that, it was to what you were saying earlier. When you dig in, you get more distortion. When you lay back a little bit, there's less distortion. You could really hear it in that line.
Yeah.
As
Cool.
you really started
Yeah.
digging in, that distortion really started coming up in the mix. It was mega. Loved it. And are you
Nice.
doing sort of like a hammer on at the beginning? Is that what you're doing? That blah, there's a little trill
I
in there.
think so. Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
what do you call that?
The rock trill.
I don't know what I'm doing. I think I do like a little slidey thing.
Yeah.
I don't re-attack. That
Yeah.
so funny, like
Sounds
you just
killing, dude.
do this stuff for years and then you're like, what am I doing? I don't know.
That's why we're here, Jon Button, to just peel back the layers.
I remember, Scott, when I did an earlier interview with you, you were asking me like, oh, do you pluck through the string? And I was just like, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I have no idea.
That's great.
Oh, how do you hold your pick? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a really famous clip on the, do you know the Jacko video, modern electric
course.
bass, with obviously Jaco Pastorius and Jerry DeMott's the interviewer, and Jerry's like, so how are you muting the strings? And Jacko's like, oh, And it's so obvious when you watch it that he has no clue. He's just never even thought about it. It's
Right.
like I think I'm
He
doing
also
something
he
like
doesn't.
this. It's-
Jocko doesn't even know where he is on that. I mean, he was
yeah. That was
wasted.
Yeah. Yeah, that as well didn't help.
Next up is Eminence Front, which I don't know about you, John. It's one of my favorites. I remember hearing it, didn't even know it was The Who because it's so different, right? I mean, it's such a different style for them.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking like, this is such a great group and song, and then found out it was The Who, and it just sort of blew my mind. But there's so much going on with Entwistle on this as well, with some like effects, slapping. Wonder if he's using, I'm not even sure, is he maybe using an octave pedal or and chorus? I don't know. Is he?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't. Definitely chorus for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think there's an octaver. I think there's maybe double tracked bass or maybe something else in there. I don't think
Got
it's
it.
an octaver. And yeah, I have never been able to figure out for sure if he's slapping the chorus part.
Choruses.
And I struggled for a while, like, am I doing the spanky, whatever you call that, Entwistle thing, or I tried it with my thumb and it just never felt right. And I found that for me, with the band as it is now, I do it with a pick, actually.
Oh, cool.
And that seems to just work best for me. Like I said, I tried all kinds of different stuff and that just seemed to sit in the pocket best and,
that's
and work
cool.
for me. So that's
Let's
what
hear Entwistle do it, and then I'm excited to see the pick thing from you. That's cool.
And Pete Townshend sings on this as well, doesn't he?
And that's another thing I didn't know. I didn't know that this was Pete. It's Pete's tune,
Yeah.
man.
And he's great, isn't he? Oh, so good.
he's amazing. Yeah.
People forget. Spray fires, speedboat guards. People forget.
Come on.
The girls smile. People forget.
Love the organ on it as well.
Snowbacks and ski tracks. People forget. They forget they're hiding. It's on an Eminence Front. Eminence Front, it's put on. Eminence Front. Eminence Front, it's put on.
Daltrey just looking good, too.
Yeah.
Eminence Front. Eminence Front, it's put on. Eminence Front, yeah. Check the Eminence Front, it's put on. Just to put on, just to put on. Won't you come and join our party? Dress yourself to do.
It's very funky, right? And
Yes.
that's one of the interesting things is like on the original recording on that chorus, John, like the drums are pretty straight and John's kind of like swinging like
Yes.
a lot. And it's really interesting, that sort of interplay.
Oh,
really cool.
it's so cool. Can you show us how you tackle that thing?
Well, one thing that's interesting is it's got a low D flat.
It's got
right?
that boom.
And so,
Yes.
Yeah.
so to start off with, I put a bit of chorus on with my quad cortex.
Yes.
And so, whole notes, right? Yeah. And then
Now,
I
are
just
you
tuned. I've got my hip shot, right?
Got it.
Can we
To a
see
D
that?
flat.
Right. I have it set to a D flat. Normally, in the normal world, it would be on a D.
Sure.
But for Who stuff, I hit it to D flat so I can make sure it hit it in tune. So yeah, and that makes it interesting because on gotta
Sure.
that's where your fourth is, right? And octaves.
Oh, weird.
Oh,
Right?
cool, man.
So that gets interesting. But I like that. I've done that on several different tours where I have like super weird because I'll often I do play 5-string, but for certain things I'm like, I'll just tune weird and
just drop it down and then relearn it a certain way. Will you just play? I mean, I know it's a simple bass line, but would you just play through that with that sound? It's just gorgeous, man.
Oh, sure. And that's another interesting thing that in my mind is similar to Bob O'Reilly, right? We were talking about if you screw up those whole notes, it's like a disaster. This, I mean, it's huge when you're playing a big place.
Listen to that. It's like, it's everything. You have to hit it, right?
Yeah, right? And you have to hit it right in the pocket or it just like, everything's like, whoa. And so, yeah, it's one of those things where like, more than all the shredding stuff, I'm like, when I'm playing those, I'm like, whoa, and you also, if you bump it while it's ringing, oops, the sleeve of your coat,
yeah.
I mean, think about it.
Out of here.
All those subs, like, in a stadium or whatever, like, it's just like, run, then
Hey,
there's a lot of focus on that.
Has that happened to you? Like, have you shut down a note before and gone like, oh my God,
sure.
have you felt the consequence of that?
It's like the end of the world for me. I'm sure nobody in the audience even notices.
Sure.
But I'm gonna go, like moping back to the hotel, like, that one whole note. I'm that guy. Like, I'm just like, so. I mean, sure, all kinds of things. I've done it all from like, you start a song and your tuner's on.
Yes.
I try to make them pretty few and far between, but all that shit happens.
Yeah, that's great. How about the chorus of that? Can you show us a little bit of what you do in the chorus?
Sure. Eminence Front.
Oh, so good.
Come on.
So I'm trying to think like a funk guitar player, right?
Right. Yeah.
I'm kind of keeping some of the 16ths and trying to give it a little bit of that. There's a little bit of a swing to it, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really fun. It's a challenge. I find that's one of the ones that, I listen to board tapes and go, because it's really easy to rush on that and then it sounds hokey. And to get it in that so it feels tough, but still swings. It's like there's a pretty narrow spot where, to me, for my ears, it needs to kind of sit in. So, yeah, that's something I've practiced a fair bit with, just sitting on that. And yeah, it's a challenging one.
It's also just so badass that you can tap your foot and groove so hard. It's just, Jon Button, come on, baby. You sound so good.
Oh, man, you're so kind.
It's true, man. It's killing. It's just so fun to hear this stuff broken out, too, man. What a treat. It's just great. Really? We've got another one. I mean, and of course we have to do this. We've got to do My Generation, and Scott's going to pull up the classic Smothers Brothers performance, and we've got to talk about the solo, and also I feel like we've got to talk about the chaos too. But let's first, I mean, we have to. Let's first just talk about the solo. I mean, there's so much going on here, right? It's
so
like
cool.
Like the coolest lines, such a cool sound, that old Vox bass, and then just couldn't care.
Yeah, it's his face. He's obviously got his like the vibe is that I actually don't want to be here. I'm like, I don't know who these guys are, but I'm just not like I'm the accidental bass player. You know, it's just
Dude, yes.
whatever.
I mean, before we break this down, have you thought about, like, when you're on stage with the Who, have you thought about curbing your enthusiasm? Like, has that been a thing for you? Like, because wouldn't you feel like you would want to sort of like rock in those moments, but then do you feel like you kind of have to ox it and like keep it at bay?
Well, yes and no. For me, it's not a sense of I need to make it like Entwistle or I'm going to like play the Entwistle character. But I have found, like, especially early on in my career when I first started playing big venues with, other artists, man, it's exciting.
Yeah.
And you start rushing. It's so hard. Like, you start digging in too hard, right? You get excited and you're like bashing and you're rushing and it's just a disaster. And it's so easy to do that when stuff gets exciting. So there's definitely a conscious, it's sort of natural for me now more and more as I've been doing this for a bajillion years.
Sure.
But there's definitely a feeling of like, I want to like take a deep breath, lay back, not rush.
Settle into those moments.
For me, the pocket is like number one. For me, that's like, it's like pocket, sound, chops, and whatever. So like for me, I want everything to feel right. And so when you're playing a big place and everybody's going crazy and it's so exciting and that song's amazing, and then you just have to, and sometimes I almost have like a feeling like I'm doing everything in slow motion.
Wow.
Like, just to make everything like I feel every space between every note and, so it just sort of, everything slows down and it's not this frantic, like, So there's definitely, that is a thing.
But what about your face, Jon Button? Do you ever feel like you're smiling too much, or do you not even think about that stuff?
I don't think about that. However, I used to have a lot of bass face, and I don't care what it looks like at all.
Got it.
But it does add tension to your whole body, and take energy and focus away from the task at hand, I think. And so I've actually practiced, when I'm at home practicing, I consciously go, I'm not going to,
sure.
I'm not going to I'm going to like, and I actually literally practiced not doing all that, subconscious stuff with my face. I say, not because I give a rat's ass what it looks like, but because I want my playing to be the best it can be and be relaxed and so.
And bass face to you is detrimental to the groove.
I think it can be.
I think
I want to have overall be relaxed.
Right.
Yeah, I think that it's actually tied in with your breath as well. Like something I think about sometimes, is like when I'm playing, if I am doing, if the face is gone, doing whatever it does, bass face, like I think that I'm not breathing like in a regulated manner. I'm probably like holding my breath and then gasping and then all kinds of stuff. And I found myself doing that. And it's something that I've considered just paying more attention to. And can I actually breathe, really making sure that my breathing's really relaxed as I'm playing? And maybe that is
100%.
Like, disconnecting the bass face. Yeah. Because I'm really bad for it. I'm like,
Yeah, I think those are totally in the same zone. And those are both things that you can actually sit and practice, Sit there and play whatever your scales or something that's challenging technically and go, can I do this and breathe normal and not make a bunch of faces and have tension in my body and stuff? And that stuff you can practice and you'll get used to it.
Isn't it so peculiar that bass seems to like it really evokes the bass?
Oh,
face?
hey, there's guitar face too. Let's
drummers,
not.
They all do it.
Let's not pull punches. There's plenty of guitar face. I mean, hey, I will say too. We're about to find out if Mr. Jon Button can play this stuff and not make bass face.
Yeah.
John, can you show us how you approach this thing? Can you show us how you do this My Generation solo?
Sure. So this is another one where I tried it with my fingers a bunch and tried doing the slappy thing and just for me, the way it cuts through a big venue and cuts through the band, the pick for the sound just works.
I love it.
So I play it with a pick. For a while, I was also like changing it up all the time to an extent. Lately, I kind of found a thing that I like, and I do it pretty close to the same every night, but it's not exactly what Jon did.
Sure.
He did, right?
With a bend.
Which is kind of, he did it, I believe that was a Dan Electro short scale. So bending on that is a little easier than on a P bass with 45 gauge strings. So I tend to, right?
What did you differently? Are you sliding?
Yeah. Instead of, I've done the bend a bit here and there, but it's really to make, it's easy to screw that up. And if you screw up the beginning of that solo, like, you're
Get the hook.
you're moping back to the hotel that night. It's like, because everybody in the crowd's just like, okay, here's the moment. Let's see what he's got. It's like that's the moment.
Of course.
So I leave that bend out. So and then he does that. I for some reason like going. Works for me. I don't know.
Great.
It's cool. And then, and I usually throw in just like, watch this.
No big deal.
Out there, I'll show you. And then the third one, I kind of changed that part up. I sometimes do that, or something, right? And then the last one where he goes, I go, or so.
Oh, that's right.
Or sometimes I'll change that one up too. I don't know. So does that? So that's what I do.
That's great. That's great.
That's what I do.
So fun to hear it. And I mean, the sound is awesome. I think the pick sounds great on it too.
Right. I mean,
Excellent.
It's just not got the edge, has it? Yeah, that the pick.
There's something that's really nimble.
Like you can really, get you really hear all of the notes, right?
Yes.
They all speak, and especially when you're in a big venue, like, I don't know. It works for me.
Oh, yeah. That's incredible.
2 questions, Jon. First of all, were you great with the pick beforehand, or is it something that you've had to do, since starting playing with the Who and Roger Daltrey?
When I first moved to LA, I got in like a band that there was a lot of pick stuff and it was challenging, and I had to shed it a lot.
Got it.
And so I got pretty adept. So I grew up playing bass. Like I didn't start on guitar. Mm-hmm. So my pick playing until I was like, I don't know, in my early 20s was non-existent. I was like, ugh. So I got in this band and just, trial by fire. I had to just work it out. And I worked on it a lot. And then, over the years, I've worked on it a fair bit. It's definitely something you gotta, and I'm pretty good at it. I mean, I'm not amazing. Like the crossing the strings and stuff still, like sometimes I have to like, okay, I'm gonna do an up and then like work stuff out, like,
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very comfortable now. I love playing with a pick.
Yeah, you said that's why I asked the question, because you were so great at it. When I was listening to you play, it seems like you've got this like super fast, really quick attack with the pick. You play basically just massive gigs with these guys all the time, don't you? It'd be cool if you just spoke as well, just about how that alters your approach to bass lines that have been recorded in a studio when you listen to them, but when you get them in an arena or stadium, they sonically struggle to work, or whether that's happened at all. I'd love to know that as well.
I would say it can depend on from room to room a little bit. If you're outdoors or something everything works great. You don't have to worry about it, to me, generally. But then if you're in like a sports arena that's not designed for sound and everything's echoing around, I'll simplify a little bit. I won't play as many busy things. And I might occasionally on some things, I don't know if I can think of a spot offhand, but I might shorten some notes or at least put a gap between the notes. You know, like if you're going from, you know, whatever, you're doing a fourth or something, if it's in an arena, it might, the first note's going to hang over.
The room, okay, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so you start getting all the, you know, and so I might just put a little more gap between the notes, you know, just to let the note end before the first note end before the second note happens. I might start to, you know, just ever so slightly shorten some things and simplify a little bit. If it's a really like swimmy, low end echoing around room. But that's not that often. But every once in a while, I can hear that in the venue and I might adapt a little bit.
Is Pete done smashing guitars? He's done.
Yeah. I'm sorry to say, he's done smashing guitars.
That's probably just as well. There's this great moment, Scott. Can we show it? There's a great moment of Entwistle protecting his baby in this clip. That's just,
really?
It's just precious to me. I mean, everyone is going crazy, and Entwistle is like, "I'm not a part of this." And yes, John knows what it is. Oh, let's fire it up. Look at that. Just,
Oh, there he is.
did the guys ever bring up that performance? Did they ever talk about that?
Not that I've heard. No.
Because that was the performance, right? Where that half stick of dynamite went off in the kick drum and contributed to like some serious hearing loss, maybe.
What?
In Pete or
It's debatable. Yeah. Oh, so if you, Scott, if you watch that footage, Pete is pretty close to the kick drum. And apparently the story I've heard is that Keith was going to put like a little bit of something like a firecracker in the kick drum. And then they're like, they put way more than what they were planning. And the kick drum literally explodes.
It explodes.
And his head, if you watch, his head is pretty close to the kick drum when it explodes. And you see him like kind of batting out. He thinks his hair's on fire or something. Yeah. And he's kind of like, nah. And I don't think like that was something Keith sort of did in the sly. I don't think anybody knew that was going to happen. I think they knew that something was going to happen. They didn't know it was going to, like, I think it was bigger than...
He didn't know it was... Keith probably didn't even know it was going to explode.
Maybe not in that way.
He didn't know it was going to be so big. It was like, oh, well, if, one firecracker's cool, then 10 would be even cooler, right?
Yeah. More is more. That's my motto.
But you guys keep the instruments intact these days.
Nobody's going to... Man, I'm going to be Entwistle with this sucker, man.
No one is smashing the 65 P bass.
Hell no. No smashing.
Jon, is there a song that we didn't ask you about that, like, is there a particular line that you love to play, or is there something else like that you were surprised that we didn't ask you about, or did we just nail it? Give us a grade. How do we do?
A+. Come on.
All right.
There is one thing that I would bring up, which is the intro to Getting in Tune. Do you guys know this song? Right? See if I can remember it. Something, like that's
cool.
The bass, like the piano's just going, do you have it? Can you pull that up? There we go.
Oh,
Singing this note,
I mean,
beautiful.
The chords I'm playing. I can't pretend there's any meaning hidden in the things I'm saying, but I'm in tune, right in
I don't know.
tune.
That's
It reminds me of what you were saying, John, earlier about him being an orchestrator, right? About him
Exactly.
playing horn. I mean, it feels like a horn line or maybe a string line or something.
This whole song, if you check it out, like this part in the second verse and stuff, yeah, all of it sounds like he was playing an orchestra part on bass. And it's really cool. And it's exactly what you say, is it always makes me think, oh, you know, he played classical music and he's thinking that. It's
so
really
cool.
great. So anyway, we don't play that live that much, but it's just an awesome, you know, Entwistleism.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, John, if people want to come and harass you online and do that whole thing, where do we send them?
Instagram at Jon Button Bass. Yeah. Or I have jonbutton.com as well, but Instagram's a good place to reach me.
I also wanted to put out a recommendation because we were talking the other day and you mentioned that we were talking about an album that you'd recorded on with Yvette Young recently. Like, that was in the last year, right?
Yeah, maybe about a year ago.
Year, 18 months ago. The band's covered, obviously, Yvette Young on guitar, and you mentioned that you played bass on that. And I wanted to, we haven't spoken since, and I was like, dude, you freaking are amazing on the album. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Me and the kids have been listening to it for the last couple of weeks.
Oh, that's so cool.
Great. It's really great. So huge recommendation for that as well. Just great bass sounding. Have you checked it out, Ian?
No, I need to. I need to check it out.
Cool, man.
I mean, it's a testament, right? I mean, you're not just the guy that plays in the Who. I mean, that's a hilarious statement. Like, not just the guy that plays in the Who, but I mean, you're still a very active side musician. You're playing on records. You're playing with artists. You're doing it out there. It's amazing. So it's more. You're so much more. You're so much more, John. I love it. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, so thanks for being with us, John. Absolute star for coming on.
Always a pleasure, always.
And if you have liked seeing all these classic Who bass lines that John has been interpreting out on the road with the Who, just wait until we show you the bass lines that made him. We made another interview with Jon Button going through the bass lines that he loved growing up, and we're going to see that. He's going to show them to us, and if you want to check that out, that is exclusively at scottsbasslessons.com. If you haven't checked it out, you can grab a free 14-day trial. We've got a link in the description. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be awesome. We'll see you over there.